Good evening, everyone. How's everybody doing? I want to welcome you to our Closer experience. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, let me share with you what our Closer experience is. Closer is our midweek experience at the Leadership Church. We call it an experience because it can be a variation of small groups, Bible study, midweek pop up service, chat and choose, panel discussions, conversation, or coaching groups. And this month we've been discussing leveling up. We've been discussing leveling up in certain areas, and tonight's area is in commitment. Now, before we dive in, I want to introduce our great pastor, none other than Pastor Elisha Cash. Pastor E, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I'm excited about tonight.
Great, because I can't wait to hear your thoughts on commitment.
Oh boy.
Commitment. What does commitment look like? When we hear the word commitment, there we think about different things. We think about our commitment to our loved ones. We think about our commitment to our job. We think about our commitment to our studies. There's so many things that we can think about when it comes to commitment. But what I want to share with you is the dictionary definition of commitment, which is the state or quality of being dedicated to a cause, activity, and etc. Now, Pastor E, when you hear the word commitment, what do you think about?
Well, I'm glad you asked because a lot of times we can say the word commitment because, you know, the funny thing about the English language that is truly left up to interpretation. And so what we find is we may be saying the same thing. Let's say it together. Commitment, right?
Yes.
We're saying the same thing, but the truth is we may mean two different things, or it means something totally different from what we're actually saying. And so that's one of the things that's funny, because then when we show up in certain spaces, I'm saying the word commitment and I am saying what it means to me, but necessarily it may mean something different to the average person or someone else, right? So it's very important that we define in all spaces what commitment means, right?
Yes.
Because culturally, commitment can mean so many different things depending on where you are. And I think that sometimes helping to define what commitment looks like in this relationship, in this setting, and what it means to me is most important. So I'm so glad you opened up with what commitment, we're defining commitment. And so for me, when I hear the word commitment, I mean, it means that you're all in.
All in.
You're all in. And so come hell or high water, because I'm one of those people, I am cut from that cloth, right? Come hell or high water, when I need you or I go looking for you, you're there.
Exactly.
And so that to me means commitment, that you're committed to the relationship, that you're committed to the cause, that you're committed to the journey, that you're committed to the space, and you're committed to whatever it is that we're doing, because you said, I'm with you.
Exactly. So y'all heard her definition. So you be careful when you use the word commitment with her, because she's holding you to the carpet when you say you are committed to her. Okay? You heard it here first. This is a TLC exclusive. When Pastor E asks you about your level of commitment, everything she just said, you better come with it and come correct. Okay? All right. So I did want to ask you, when it comes to our culture,
Yes.
do you feel that they applaud or glorify a lack of commitment?
I definitely think there's a lot of gray area there, because I just told you the cloth that I'm cut from, right?
Yes.
And so I think that's why I leaned into first defining it first, because our current culture to me does embrace the lack of commitment. Thus you have now people, when especially because I come from an HR perspective, a lot of times when we talk about workforce development and what it looks like these days. And when I say this generation, I'm not necessarily pinpointing a certain generation. I mean, generation of people, what it means to be committed to a place of employment, what it means to be committed to a place of work. And now people have redefined what commitment used to looks like. It used to be people would stay on jobs or stay with a certain employer for like 10 years. You didn't want to see a lot of movement within a resume. You wanted to kind of stay within 5 to 10 years because that showed some level of commitment, right?
Yes.
But these days, commitment looks like 1 year. If you get that, if you get that, from a recruiting standpoint, when we see someone has committed to an employer 1 to 2 years, I'm like, okay, they stayed here, they got some experience from this particular entity. So I do think commitment looks different in our culture today, even when it comes to just every day being committed to a cause or to the work or to just anything. I think commitment just looks different. And it's so important to define what commitment looks like, because these days we're saying the same thing, but we mean something totally different. Yes.
And I know for like my generation, the millennial generation, has definitely taken that word commitment and turned that thing around and spun it to be something that gratifies them. Not what gratifies God, but what gratifies them. For instance, I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. Yes, I mean, we already know God in the Bible says we're not supposed to cohabitate before marriage. We're not supposed to live together before marriage. We're not supposed to have sex before marriage. We're not supposed to do any of those husband and wife things before marriage. Yet and still, not only do we do those things, but now we've even taken that term commitment to gratify us in the sense of you no longer need the promise of the commitment, i.e. the engagement. Because some people feel like, oh, well, we've already been together for so long. We're already cohabitating. We've already lived together for so long that we don't need to be married, or it's not broke, so we don't have to fix it. But we know in the eyesight of God, that's not honorable.
Yes. I think, okay, I come from a generation, we called it shacking up, right?
Yes.
Shacking up is not new.
It's not
by any far, but I think it's definitely trending, right? I think it's on a fence of where it used to be people say, well, we're gonna we're trying to see if this is gonna work, right? The pre-arrangement to see if I could see myself marrying this person, or I could see if we could. And so I hear my mom's voice in the back of my mind as a female, why buy the cow if I can get the milk for free? And so when we have that philosophy, when it comes to just commitment, like if this person, this is on both sides of the coin, if you're not able to lean into commitment prior to cohabitating, since we're talking about relationships and marriage, I don't know how long you're going to be willing to settle for trying out versus having the real thing. So it's almost like sometimes it works in some people's favor and sometimes it doesn't. For some women, it works out in their favor, 10 or 15 years down the line. You guys chime in, y'all watching,
Exactly.
tell us about the stories or even if you have been in a relationship where you shacked up first or did it the opposite direction that the Bible tells us to do it. And did it turn out in your favor or turn out in God's favor, for your life? But when we make the decisions on backwards, because of course people can say, well, I got married, I did it the right way, and it still didn't work. So you're going to have those people that say that, for instance. But there could have been a lot of different variables on why it didn't work. But what I can say is that I'm celebrating 20 years, and I'm a testimony because we're overcomer by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. And so I am able to testify that this year, Pastor Tony and I, we're celebrating 20 years in marriage. Now that my aunt, I was visiting her, she's celebrating 40 years in marriage. And so and they did it right. And these are people that have been great examples that when it comes to relationships, if you can see the commitment process through, because you talked about that, like because we're just talking about relationships and we're talking about marriage. If you can see the commitment process through, like the engagement through to pre-counseling and through to marriage, that it can turn out right and turn out to your favor.
It can. And myself as well, I can personally say I was one that I did shack up. Did my pastors like that? Absolutely not. But was it a situation that worked out in my favor? Thank you, Jesus. Yes, it did. And so, no, I did not do everything the right way. But I eventually got it right. Yes. Because I knew that was not something I wanted to continue. And so I can say, with me getting it right this year, I myself will be celebrating 8 years of marriage. And I know, obviously, yes, I'm still working to get to 20, but neither one of us would be here without putting in the work and putting in the level of commitment that is required to our relationships and to our significant others. Now, for those of you out there that says, well, I'm not in a relationship, because I know everybody is not. You have to make the decision to make a personal commitment to yourself. Make a personal commitment to yourself so that you're one that can stand firm and stand proud of the person that you want to become, the person that you're working towards becoming. It's not going to happen overnight. You can't just wake up and say one morning, I want to be a rocket scientist. I want to be a pastor. I want to be a writer. All of those things in some form or facet take a certain level of, what's the word, Pastor E? Commitment.
But can we back it up real quick though? Because you asked me one question about if there was a culture, did I think that our culture applies a lack of commitment? And so we talked about a lack, and I told you, and my response was yes when it comes to I looked at it from a work perspective. Then we talked about from a relationship perspective. Let's talk about it from a spiritual perspective real quick.
Okay.
I think sometimes our culture likes to create a lot of gray areas when it comes to having what a commitment to God looks like and what commitment to God's church looks like.
Yes.
And I know we're going to dive more into that later, but even can you lean in a little bit from that perspective? What do you think? Do you think our culture have we created a culture where
so I say, regardless of what religious organization you belong to, you made the decision to be committed, and you have to remain firm in your commitment, because once you've made the decision to commit, your headship are looking for you to help in certain areas to keep the kingdom of God and the things of the church thriving and flourishing. I am one that, when Pastor E and Pastor Tony decided to start this church, I was there from the very beginning. Their level of commitment has gotten them where they are today. But I admired their level of commitment because, y'all, they started in the living room. And then we grew to a 4,000 square foot space. And then there was some season of transition, and they still chose to remain committed, because most people, the pandemic took a lot of people out. There were certain things and certain seasons that, caused people to fall by the wayside, but they remained constant in their commitment, not only to God, but to the body of believers that chose to still be committed to them. And that, to me, takes a certain level of understanding. That takes a certain level of love. That takes a certain level of trust to remain committed to a headship that has been, if you think about it, when they told us we were moving and different things of that nature, most of our natural responses was like, oh, we can't do that. But they stood firm in their commitment. So therefore, most of us chose to stand firm in our commitment to see it through. We chose to have that level of faith. And I am one that, from the living room up until present day, has seen what commitment, constant and continuous commitment, because I know it gets hard. They're human. Yeah, we're all human.
Because church folks are rough, honey.
They are. They are. Church folks are rough. And
church folks and ministry is hard.
it
Yes.
is, and people see the after effect like,
Yes.
oh, this is so easy,
All
this
the
is,
outcomes.
but it's not, because they're the ones that have to do all the planning. Because guess what, if everybody in the church decides to leave them, and they still want to remain committed, and it's just them, they have to want to remain committed.
Yes, absolutely.
Even if everyone that makes the decision to quit on them, guess what? They got to remain committed. They're the ones, this is their baby, this is their vision. So they're the ones that have to see it through. They're just hoping to have some help along the way.
That's a huge mantle. Thank you for reminding me. Yes.
But I am one that I feel has obviously remained committed, because like I said, I saw them from the living room.
Yes.
And again, here we are today, and we've been able to expand and expound on what we've been able to deliver as a church, and be able to deliver it to you. But Pastor E, I did want to ask you another question.
Sure.
What do you feel are some commitment blockers?
Oh boy. Commitment blockers. The first thing I'm going to lead into is our feelings, because sometimes a lot of people are held captive to their feelings.
Oh, honey.
I think about what it takes to get up and go to work every day, right?
Yes.
So when you're committed to a job, right, and that means when they have offered you employment, they don't care that it's raining. They don't care that your house is on fire. They don't care that you got a flat tire. They want to know, what's your ETA?
Yes.
What's your estimate time of arrival? When you gonna get there to do what? To do the work.
Yes.
To do the work. And so commitment a lot of times is lost in our feelings. Oh, it's raining outside, so I don't feel like going to church today. Or it's raining outside, I don't feel like waking up and serving today. Or it's rain. I mean, believe it or not, people will call out on you for rain. People call out on jobs for rain. People don't move and show up like they're supposed to show up because of their feelings, because they're held captive to their feelings. They allow their feelings to rule them. And so one thing about commitment is not allowing your feelings to rule you. Another thing is lack of time management. That's one thing. You have to learn how to manage your time. A lot of times you have all these things on your schedule, and you will say, oh, I'm busy. But to me, being busy is something that I don't pride myself in saying. I'm looking more for productivity.
Yes.
What's going to give me the best return? Just because I'm doing all these different things, and I look up and the whole day has gone by, and then I look at, well, what did I accomplish with my time? Because at the end of the day, Janae, we get the same amount of hours.
We do.
But what you do with yours and what I do with mine look totally different. That has something to do with managing your time. You can't let your time tell you what to do. You have to tell your time where to go. Because if not, you'll look up and time has bossed you around, and you have nothing to show for it at the end of the day. And if that's happening to you, that's one of the reasons why you can't show a certain level of commitment, not only to yourself, but also more importantly to God. You're not able to lean into being more committed to God because you're not managing your.
Well, I'm glad that you said that there, because I know we have some more points to follow, but what do you feel are some blockers with Christians when it comes to their commitment to both God and church?
I just what I said, feelings.
Okay. Feelings.
I really think, you say, oh, I don't feel like it. Like I mean, me being because we've been committed to 21 days of fasting and praying, the 21-day challenge. Mm-hmm. There has been some times that I have driven past all the fast foods, especially when you first start out on a journey, right? You're passing all the restaurants, and it's like, okay, I want thinking about Pappadeaux, but why did Pappadeaux? I feel like getting in my car, driving to Pappadeaux,
Yeah.
But no, I'm committed to this 21 day of fasting and praying. Or when the alarm goes off at 5:45 a.m. to say, get up and prepare for prayer. I really want to hit the snooze like, Lord, 15 more minutes, but no, God says, this is the season for fasting and praying. So I'm committed to leveling up my relationship with him. So I'm getting up for the prayer call that comes on at 6:00 a.m. so I could be in intercession with my brothers and sisters. So that to me is about, not leaning into your feelings.
Mhm.
And then that was not leaning into your time. And so those things are very important. And the other thing is unrealistic expectations, right? That's a blocker, because that's why I said it was very important for us to define what commitment means. Because I may have a expectation of you that, even what it takes for us to do ministry, that you're going to be prepared, you're going to be on time, you're going to be present, and that you're going to be focused, and then you're going to provide a certain level of energy. See, all of this is what commitment means to
Because
me.
we do those things for what? Work.
We do those things for work.
But yeah, and still we find it an issue to do those things for church and do those things for God.
Yeah, absolutely. Because one thing about it, when an employer hires you, they tell you what the culture is, right? Because you want to get something out of it, which is a paycheck, right? You say, okay, I want a paycheck. I want to be able to feed my family, pay my mortgage, purchase a car, all the things that you need, right? And so when a company tells you our culture here is, number one, that you show up on time, right? You can't show up late, right? Because if you don't show up on time, we're going to dock your pay, and we may put you on a PIP, and you may end up losing this opportunity, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we know this is a culture where you got to show up on time. Once you show up, you actually got to do work. You can't be on your cell phone, on Instagram, on TikTok, and on Facebook, and on your phone all day. You actually have to show up and do the work for the company.
Yes.
So that's engagement, and that means doing some work, right? So they're already telling you that this is the culture of our company. We have people that come in here that do an excellent job, and that's the same thing. God, when he wants you to show up, he wants you to serve. He wants you to serve his church. He wants you to serve him, and then he wants you to be happy about serving, know? So those are the things that when we talk about commitment, what that looks like, and what do you want your brand to be? Do you want your employer to see you as a lazy employee, one who never shows up and shows up on time, who, if something happens, does not call and say, something happened to me on my way to work and I'm MIA, I'm missing in action,
Yes.
No, that's not what you want. You want them to know that you are a good employee. So it's the same thing. You want your church or the organization or wherever you're serving, whatever you're being a part of, you want them to know that you are a committed vessel and you believe in the mission and vision that they have put forth. And I think, because I made some notes, the other thing was lack of motivation or accountability. So a lot of times, this is a blocker, because we're talking about things that block commitment, a lack of motivation or accountability. Anytime that you're committed, because I just think about a relationship, my marriage would not work if there was no motivation there and there was no accountability there, right?
Right.
No relationship would work if there was no accountability. If I was just able to come in the house whenever I want to and decide if I'm going to cook or clean or buy groceries, our household wouldn't work. It couldn't work off of that. Could your household work off of lack of motivation and accountability?
It would run chaotically.
It would run chaotically,
It would be all over the place.
Yes. And what are you able to take this ring off and be like, oh, I'm not committed today to whatever?
No. No.
No, that's not how it goes. So it's like a lack of motivation and accountability. And the last thing is external distractions. I think is a hindrance to commitments. Sometimes y'all all over the place, or sometimes in seasons, I may be all over the place. And sometimes you have overly committed to other things and you're not executing properly. So I always say, think of 3 things, because we're at the top of the year, that you are going to commit to, and do those 3 things well. I'd rather commit to doing the 3 things well than to commit to 10 things and only do 3 things good and 7 things poorly, So no, I'm going to commit to these 3 things and I'm going to do them well. I'm going to lean in and I'm going to give it all I got. And one of the things that I commit to is the church. I'm going to commit to God and I'm going to commit to God's church.
So
I know that was a mouthful. I'm sorry.
So take this opportunity right now. Drop your 3 things in the chat, or just make your own personal list and say, what 3 things can I commit to for the rest of the year, from February to December, and what 3 things do I want to commit to, and how can I commit to actually doing them and doing them well. There's one thing to commit to doing it. I know a lot of us make the commitment about exercising. If your goal is to get healthy, no, it's not going to happen overnight, but you can take baby steps. You don't have to take giant steps.
Yes.
Because again, that's what we set, that unrealistic expectation. If we're 200 pounds and we decide, oh, I'm going to drop 100 pounds this year, realistically, unless you're starving yourself, you can't do that. So you have to take the small victories. Start with 10 pounds. Start with, then do
That's
another
good.
10
That's
pounds.
good, Janae.
Then, or if your commitment is to get a new job, okay, what field do I want to be in? What experiences do I have? You know, things of that nature. And then you get with someone who has job or HR or some level of experience, and you get with those people that help you set out your goals and for you to remain committed. And then when it comes to, if your thing is, I want to become more committed to a ministry, well, first find a ministry that lines up with your goals, and you guys have to connect and collaborate together. And then from that vantage point, you get with that ministry's headship, and you ask them to help develop you. You spend personal time with them. You get with them so that they can continue to develop you to be the committed Christian that you're destined to be.
That's good, Janae. That was really good. A lot of times, you know, when we talk about commitment, we forget as believers that commitment is a cost of discipleship.
Commitment is a cost of discipleship. Let's stop right there.
Yes.
Commitment is a cost of discipleship.
Yes. Yes.
I know a lot of us have heard that saying, that salvation is free, but ministry costs.
Yes.
And I know more times we use it from a financial sense, but if you think about it, your commitment to a ministry, there's a cost. Because for some of us who are new in our Christian walk, your commitment would be not dealing with certain people in your circles anymore because they're holding you back, not doing certain things, or releasing yourself from certain things, or stepping back from certain things because it's holding you back, you know. And then again, finding where you fit in the ministry. There's all levels of cost to that.
Yes, that's good. Yes, that's good. Jesus had made it plain in the cost of discipleship. If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. In essence, the true cost of commitment to Christ is one's total self-denial, cross-bearing, and the continual following of him. And I think a lot of times we lose sight of that because we want what we want when we want it. And then it's like it's an art of convenience for us. We want to make God, put him on the shelf and be like, okay, I'll pull you off the shelf when it's convenient for me.
When I need you.
When I need you, right.
Yes.
Yeah. And then so it's almost like the vending machine mentality with a relationship.
So you call it vending machine, I call it genie.
Okay, genie.
Because we treat God like a genie.
Yes.
When we now see, you know, we always are asking things from him, and oh God, can you? Oh
Yes.
God, please do. Oh God,
Yes.
please, I promise.
Yes.
And but once you've gotten those things, then he's back in the bottle.
Oh,
he's back on the shelf, as Pastor E has
said. You
said.
just ran over our toes. Didn't she run over y'all toes? I know she ran over y'all toes. I know y'all feel it. She just stepped over all 10 of your toes. But here's the thing, though, you know, let's talk about how God has shown his commitment to us, right? And then we'll come back to the toe you just ran over all 10 of the toes. You know, God is fully committed to you and to me, right? Have you ever thought about that it doesn't matter if we respond to God's commitment or not? He is totally, fully committed to us. He has showed up in our lives so many times, year after year, month after month, week after week, hour after hour. God shows up for us.
And for those of you who are the Aladdins of the world and treating God like the genie that he is not, God is not granting you 3 wishes. God's promise to you was eternal life.
Yes.
God's promise,
Yes.
his continual commitment to you
Yes.
is eternal life.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
so that's what you have to, that's your goal. That's what you have to chase
Yes.
after.
Yes.
And I feel like those of us, trust and believe, if you sitting there and you think about how you've treated God and how you were or how less committed you were to God because you wanted to rub the bottle and put them back in the bottle or put them back on the shelf, would you be able to handle that if that was done to you? Would you be able to forgive yourself if that was done to you, even though he grants us grace and mercy day after day, time after time, even though we said we promised we never gonna do it again?
Yes. Oh God.
Would
help us.
we would not be able to handle what we dish out.
Oh my God. See that right there? I just want to fall on the floor right there. Jesus, help us, Lord.
And again, this is
Yes.
not a bashing session. This is a
No.
thought-provoking session
Yeah, it
because
is.
again, the commitment that he has to us daily,
Yeah.
even though he only lived earthly for 33 years,
Mhm.
the eternal commitment that he has made for us
Yes.
as sinners,
Yes.
trying to save our sin-sick souls, trying to keep us from making crazy decisions, trying to keep us from going through certain things that we don't have to go through. He's made the daily and the lifelong commitment, and he's only asking you
Mm.
for a fraction
A fraction
of what he has
Oh,
given you.
goodness. My God, a fraction. I don't know about y'all, but that right there, Janae, that right there just gave me chills. I am literally chills have run over my body because I thought about, so many times how my commitment may not have lined up with things that I have promised God. Like, God, when you do this, I'm going to do that. If you do this, I'm going to do that. And then as soon as God, because he's committed to us, like Janae just said, as soon as he delivers on his commitment, I've already forgotten. Now that I've gotten what I wanted.
Yeah.
My kids do that to me and it makes me mad.
Mommy, if you do it, I promise I'll
Yes.
do it. And then as soon as you get it, the promise is
I'm gonna keep my room clean. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. If you buy me this, I'm gonna take good care of it.
But just like you as a parent already know,
Yes.
God already knows. No matter how much you promise him,
Yes.
until you make the decision to do right by your promise,
Yes.
he already knows.
Yes.
He already knows. So it's no point in faking the funk. He already knows.
He knows. But the truth is, he's hoping that you're coming to self-discovery and know what you're committing to. Faith without work is dead. I believe James 2:14 teaches us that faith without work is dead. No matter how much we profess our belief, our faith becomes meaningless and ineffective if we don't live out our beliefs in practical ways. Hence, commitment and hard work are vital to demonstrating our faith and communicating God's love to the world. So how you show up is one thing to say it. We can't just talk about it. We got to live a life that's being about it. And that's commitment is action. Commitment is an action word. You just can't say I'm committed. You have to have the behaviors and the actions that line up with the word commitment.
Because if not, then I would be skinny. I would just say I am skinny. And guess what? I would be skinny.
Really?
I'm just saying. So, but I know in order for me to get where I want to be, I gotta put behind the commitment to truly be there. I'm just saying, that's one of those commitments. My commitment to my health.
Right.
But in all seriousness, your commitment to God is a serious thing. Your relationship with God is a serious thing. And just like how you want commitment in your relationship with a significant other, or from a job, or from anyone, from a friendship, God wants that same level of commitment, if not more. Because guess what? That job can't do for you what God does for you. Those friends can't do for you what God does for you. He wants your commitment, but he wants you to mean and work at your commitment to him. It doesn't mean you're not going to stumble, but stumble and keep going. Don't stumble and stay.
That was good right there. That was the snapping. If you all enjoyed us talking about commitment. You know, how are you going to level up your commitment in 2024? That's what today is all about. You know, drop it in the chat. We would love to hear from you and to see your thoughts about
Yes.
ways you're going to level up your commitment in 2024. I enjoyed being on here with you today, Janae.
I enjoy having you, Pastor E.
We got to do this again.
We will.
Okay.
Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us. We hope that you come back next week and join us for another Closer Experience, because of course there's always something exciting around the corner. Thank you for joining us and have a great night.